So, with winter solstice just passed, I thought why not take a look at winter solstice and its cultural significance around the world. Winter solstice, or hibernal solstice, or midwinter, coincides with the point on the Earth orbit around the Sun when the Earth's pole has its maximum tilt away from the Sun. This is also the time when the Sun shines directly over the Tropic of Capricorn or Cancer. This basically means that we will have a day with the longest night or the shortest daylight period. This day marks the start of winter from an astronomical perspective. For the Northern Hemisphere, it is usually sometime between December 20th to 23rd that this happens, and in the Southern Hemisphere, this would happen in June. Now, astronomical phenomena have for long been linked with cultural festivals or rituals around the world, and winter solstice is no different. In fact, there is no record of the supposed birth of Christ in December. Christian leaders aiming to attract pagans to their faith coincided Christmas with the existing pagan celebrations of winter solstice, which led to many elements of Christmas, such as lighting trees and burning logs, being borrowed from winter solstice festivals. Winter solstice was viewed by ancient cultures as a time of death and rebirth of the sun gods. They saw the reduction in sunlight reaching its peak at winter solstice before reverting back to more sunlight during the day. Some saw this as the war between light and darkness, with light triumphing just after winter solstice. Zoroastrian lore holds that evil forces wander the earth on the night of winter solstice. Celtic and Germanic folklore also reflects this belief, which is why they burn Yule logs to welcome back light. Sunlight being important for agriculture, the threat of starvation was real in the winter months, and January to April in the Northern Hemisphere or July to October in the Southern Hemisphere were known as the famine months. Winter solstice in this sense was the last feast celebration before deep winter. Animals were slaughtered so as not to have to feed them, meaning this was the time of the year with the most fresh meat around. Most of the wine and beer fermented during the year was ready for consumption at this time as well. Traditionally, celebrations started at the previous eve and continued throughout the day. Humans may have observed the winter solstice as early as Neolithic period, the last part of the Stone Age, beginning about 10,200 BC. Archaeological sites such as Stonehenge and Newgrange, whose primary axes align with the sunrise and sunsets during winter solstice, are a testament to this. Let's visit some of the different festivals and celebrations around the world commemorating winter solstice and see how different people enjoy this interesting day. Yalda, also sometimes called Shab-e Yalda or Shab-e-Chelle, is the Iranian festival celebrating winter solstice, observed for thousands of years by communities in Iran, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, Kurdistan, Tajikistan, and Turkey. In the Iranian calendar, winter solstice corresponds to the last day of the 9th month of the year, Azar, and signals the start of winter. Yalda traditions stem from the ancient Zoroastrian customs intended to protect people from evil spirits roaming the long night. People would stay awake most of the night and spend time in the safety of their friends and family, sharing the last remaining fruits from the summer. Zoroastrians celebrated the next day in a festival called Khorram Ruz, which means joyful day, or Nabat Ruz, which means 90 days, referring to the 90 days before the Iranian New Year celebration of Nowruz. The name Chelle, or 40th, is a callback to the fact that this is the night opening the initial 40-day period of the 3-month winter. This is relevant to Iranians as the Sadeh festival, which is another Iranian festival, is celebrated on the 40th day of winter. The other name, Yalda, is a name of Syriac origin meaning birth. Some say it was borrowed from Syriac Christians who had received protection from persecution in the Sassanid Empire and used this word to refer to Christmas, which was celebrated around the same time as the Iranian festival. Others say it was borrowed from Romans who celebrated the birth of Mithra, the god of light, in this period. This word might also be related to the Old Norse word Yule, which means dark or night, which is another festival we'll discuss later. Nowadays, Yalta is celebrated by gathering together with family and spending until well after midnight sharing stories, reading poetry, and divining using the Divan of Hafez or Fala Hafez, an Iranian poet. Prior to invention and prevalence of electricity, decorating and lighting the house and yard with candles was also part of the tradition. Foods that are symbols of light and life, meaning they're red in color, such as pomegranates and watermelons, are eaten to keep the darkness away. Traditional nuts and dried fruits are also served. These items and more are commonly placed on a kursi or a heating table, which people sit around and share the food and stories together. Lohri is a Punjabi folk festival on January 13th, celebrated by Sikhs and Hindus from the Punjab region to commemorate winter solstice and the arrival of longer days. It originated as a Hindu festival in the Himalayan regions, which face colder winters than the rest of the Indian subcontinent. Traditionally, bonfires were lit, followed by socializing around the fire and singing and dancing. The next day, Hindus would celebrate Makar Sanskrati and bathe in rivers or lakes. Punjabis celebrated this winter solstice festival at the end of the month when the solstice happened, which is the reason it is held on the 13th of January. In ancient India, the festival was a winter crop season celebration and also the remembrance of the sun deity Surya or the full reverence for fire Agni. It has also been linked to Dula Behati, a Punjabi hero who rescued Hindu girls who were forcibly taken for slavery during the Mongol Empire. In Punjab, people celebrate by eating sheaves of roasted corn from the new harvest and sugarcane products and nuts harvested in January. Other notable food are radish, mustard seed, and tail rice, which is a mixture of rice, sesame seed, and jaggery. In the form of trick-or-treating, 10 to 15 days before Lohri, groups of young teenagers go around to collect logs for the bonfire and collect items such as grains, which they sell and divide the proceeds between them. With bonfires lit at the main village, people toss sesame seed, gur, sugar candy, and roveries in it, sit around and sing and dance until the fire dies. Some even pray around the fire to show respect to the natural element. The Dongzi festival, literally meaning extreme of winter or winter arrives, is a major festival celebrated by those of ethnic Chinese origin in East Asia around winter solstice. The origins of the festival go back to the yin and yang philosophy, the Chinese philosophy that describes how seemingly opposite or contrary forces may actually be complementary, interconnected, and interdependent in the natural world, and how they may give rise to each other as they interrelate to one another. During the festival, families traditionally get together. In all traditions, people used to visit ancestral temples for worship on this day, followed by a reunion dinner. During these get-togethers, especially in the south of China, balls of glutinous rice called tangyuan are consumed as a symbol of reunion. In northern China, people have dumplings, which seem to have stemmed from a doctor in the Han Dynasty period, distributing them among the poor to prevent them from getting frostbite. Dongzi was also used to celebrate the fact that one turns a year older instead of waiting for the lunar year to do so. Toji is a tradition in Japan centered around starting the year healthy and with good luck. Farmers welcome the return of the sun. People light bonfires to encourage sun's return, with huge bonfires on Mount Fuji on December 22nd. People take warm baths scented with yuzu, which is a citrus fruit, which is said to ward off colds. Japanese pumpkins are also ate on this day, as they are thought to bring good luck. Yule or Yuletide, which means Yule time, is a midwinter festival historically observed by Germanic people, which underwent Christianization to form the Christmastide and some of the traditions associated with it. In the old days, Yuletide period lasted 2 months from November to January, and references to it have been seen since the 4th century. Scholars have connected the month, event, and Yule time period to the wild hunt, a ghostly precision in the winter sky. The god Odin, who is attested in Germanic areas as leading the wild hunt and also bears the name Yolnir, and increased supernatural activities such as the wild hunt and the increased activity of Draugr, undead beings who walk the earth. On this night, in recognition of the return of the sun, fathers and sons would bring home large logs, which became known as Yule logs. They would set one end of these logs on fire. The people would feast until the log burned out, which could take as many as 12 days. The Norse believed that each spark from the fire represented a new piglet or calf that would be born during the coming year. In ancient times, sacrifices were made by everyone in the form of food or animals which were needed for the feast. Traditions from this festival, such as the Yule log, Yule goat, and Yule boar, still reflect in Christmas and Yule singing, indicating the significance of the feast in pre-Christian times. A somewhat relevant celebration is Modranit or Modranist, which means Mother's Night, and it's an event held on what is now Christmas Eve by Anglo-Saxon pagans going back to the 8th century to celebrate fertility, and it involves some sacrifices at times. Brumalia was an ancient Roman winter solstice festival in honor of Saturn and Ceres. It commenced in November and lasted for a month, ending in Saturnalia. During the festival, there were nighttime feasts and drinking. Prophetic indications were also taken for the remainder of the winter. The festival was celebrated until the 6th century. The festival emerged as during the winter, most forms of work such as military, agriculture, and hunting will come to a halt. Sacrifices by different workers were coming during this period. Around the time of winter solstice, Romans observed Juvenalia, a feast honoring the children of Rome. In addition, members of the upper classes often celebrated the birthday of Mithra on December 25th. Mithra was an ancient Persian god of light. It was believed that Mithra, an infant god, was born of a rock. For some Romans, Mithra's birthday was the most sacred day of the year. In the later Roman Empire, Mithra blended with Sol Invictus, god of the unconquered sun. Saturnalia was an ancient Roman festival in honor of the god Saturn and light on the 17th of December, and later expanded through the 23rd of December, Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, or the birthday of the unconquerable sun. The celebration involved a sacrifice at the temple of Saturn, a public banquet, and private gift-giving followed by partying and carnivals. Many Roman social norms were overturned during this period, with gambling being permitted and masters serving their slaves. Gifts in many cases were gag gifts or small wax or pottery figurines called sigillaria. The festival had theological relevance for Romans who saw it as a restoration of the ancient Golden Age, when the world was ruled by Saturn. The abundant presence of candles symbolized the quest for knowledge and truth. Owing to its timing, Saturnalia may have influenced some of the customs associated with later midwinter celebrations in Western Europe, including Christmas. St. Lucia's Day is a traditional light festival of Scandinavian to honor St. Lucia and was incorporated into earlier Norse solstice traditions. On St. Lucia's Day, Scandinavian girls wear white dresses with red sashes and wreaths of candles on their heads, as an homage to the candles Lucia wore on her head to light her way as she visited imprisoned Christians, carrying forbidden food in her arms. Soyal is the winter solstice festival of the Zuni and Hopi people, held on December 21st. It marks the beginning of the wheel of the year cycle and the time when the sun comes back from slumber. In the Hopi solstice celebration of Soyal, the sun chief takes on the duties of the Zuni Pequin, which we'll go to later, announcing the setting of the sun on the solstice. An all-night ceremony then begins, including kindling fires, dancing, and sometimes gift-giving. Shalako is a series of dances and ceremonies by the Zuni people on the winter solstice following the harvest. After fasting, praying, and observing the rising and setting of the sun for several days before the solstice, the Pequin, or the sun priest, traditionally announces the exact moment of Itiwana, the rebirth of the sun, with a long mournful call. With that signal, the rejoicing and dancing begins, as 12 Kachina clowns in elaborate masks dance along with the Shalako themselves, which are 12 feet high effigies with bird heads, seen as messengers from the gods. After 4 days of dancing, new dancers are chosen for the following year, and the yearly cycle begins again. The Inca Empire celebrated the sun god Inti on winter solstice on Inti Raymi, or the Sun Festival. In Peru, this coincides with the June solstice. Incas fasted for 3 days before the solstice. Before dawn of the day, they went and waited until sunrise, at which time they crouched before the sun, offering golden cups of sacred beer made of corn. Animals such as llamas were sacrificed, and mirrors were used to focus the sun away and set a fire. So there are obviously much more festivals that have been celebrated in this period around the world, but I hope this gives you a glimpse into what some of the other cultures do during this period. We tend to each focus on what we do differently all the time, contrasting local traditions or local beliefs between nations, countries, cities, and even communities. But our cultures are much more closer than one might think. All these festivals involve celebrating light, whether with a bonfire, by lighting the house or lighting candles and logs, gathering with family and friends, sharing food and drinks, and entertaining one another with stories and rejoicing that the best is yet to come. Whether you are a Christian, Iranian, Hindu, Chinese, or another nationality, ethnicity, belief system, enjoy the season, try to learn more about how others are celebrating, enjoy the fires and the light, and don't let darkness win.